Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another season of Roscoe's recaps, and this viewing party was for All Stars 9 episode 1. And I think they were supposed to also do episode 2, but I think they ran out of time, so they're going to do it next week instead, I believe. And the guests at Roscoe's this week were Naomi Smalls and Detox. Today we're going to be talking about Naysha spilling some backstage tea about how much the Queens got paid to be on All Stars 9. Detox implies that Roxxxy Andrews may have snuck a phone with her on the set of All Stars 9. And some unrelated drama to do with Kim Chi calling out Eureka. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started by talking about the Queen's entrances, and when they got to Juiciest and Angeria, who are both from season 14, Naysha asked the others what they felt about Queens doing All Stars after only a year or two after their original seasons. Detox said that she's said this in the past already, but she thinks they need to take a break in how often they release an all-star season anyway, and, quote, let us have some space to breathe and get excited. And the fun of it has, quote, fizzled out, because we know who's going to be on the seasons before they come out, so it's not surprising anymore. But Detox also said that at least this All-Stars season has a new twist with the charity element and also the no eliminations. Naysha also said what she likes about All-Stars is we get to see queens who we haven't seen for a while, such as Chanel, but also queens like Nina West, who don't do necessarily that many appearances on the show or come back as lip-sync assassins. Naomi said she can understand why the Queens want to go back to All Stars so soon, because she was, quote, itching to go back after her original season, and she had 3 years between season 8 and All Stars 4. And Naomi joked that it was enough time to, quote, learn how to properly glue down a wig. They then got to Roxxxy Andrews' entrance where she said, baby, you can't read the doll, which went viral online when the preview of the season was released.
Baby, you can't read the doll.
And Naysha asked if people knew where this reference came from. Naysha explained that back when Roxxxy competed in the Miss Continental pageant, and Roxxxy has competed several times, but I believe the time she's referring to is 2019. And at the time, the Queens used to go live on Facebook all the time to talk about it. And from what I can find, Roxxxy was on Facebook Live for over an hour, and there's a copy of the entire video on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the description. And in the video, Roxxxy is seemingly annoyed about the pageant, and she goes on what Naysha describes as a, quote, fierce rant. And at one point, Roxxxy says this.
And if I don't do enough, like blow fire out of my ass, y'all want to get online and read. You can't read the doll. Mama, y'all are still trying to figure out to do what the fuck I'm doing. How about that?
And so it's presumed that this is why Roxxxy decided to use this line as her entrance line on All Stars 9. They then moved on, and Naysha said that there are no eliminations this season and asked the others what they thought about that. Some people in the audience then apparently shouted out that they hated it, and Naysha turned to whoever said it and said, quote, if you can sponsor each girl $50,000 to compete, then you can do that, because that's the reason that no one is getting eliminated. Detox said she loves that they're doing it for charity this season, and because no one gets eliminated, it gives all of them an opportunity to win more money for their charity. Detox also said it's great to be able to give back to the community, especially when the community gets so much hate, so it's great to have representation of the Queens on TV. Naomi said she likes it, and it's definitely a, quote, different game than it used to be, but it's not a bad thing, and change is a good thing, especially if they're now paying the girls to be on the show. Naysha then said in a kind of jokey way, quote, rumour has it, I can't confirm this, and then she winked and everyone laughed. Naysha then said that each queen got $75,000, and of that, $25,000 was for the outfits, and the remaining $50,000 was to be on the season. But Naysha made the point that you have to remember that some queens spend between $30,000 to $50,000 to compete on All Stars, and they don't make any of that money back until they get off the season and start working again. So Naysha said she feels that this was a, quote, good move on Drag Race's part, because she thinks we're going to get some of the best runways this season. Detox then asked where Naysha had heard this information, and there was a pause and people laughed. And Naysha just smiled and said, quote, "I'm assuming that if you got that much coin, you would have some really good runways." Naysha also said there was another bit of tea that she wanted to share, and this was that last year for All Stars 8, which Naysha was on, apparently they kept calling queens to get them to be on the show, but when the queens found out that there were going to be actual eliminations, many of the queens said no. So Naysha said that no one wanted to do All Stars and spend that much money to just get sent home, especially because, quote, "the toxic part of the fandom tears the queens apart if they go on the show and things don't go their way." Detox agreed and said that it's completely valid that the queens feel that way. And Naysha said that's why this year they got a really good cast, because there were no eliminations. They then talked about the fact that the queens in this episode did a group number where they wrote their own verses rather than a talent show. And Caramel asked if they preferred a group number or a talent show. Detox said she prefers a group number because there are so many talent shows these days. And also she thinks a group number is more challenging than a talent show because you usually only find out about it on the day, and so you have to write the verse and do the choreography. So it, quote, pushes people more, and there are no eliminations this time, so there's no risks. And Naysha said, quote, "Do you not see how much fun they're having right now because there is nothing at stake except for a pin/badge?" And everyone laughed, and Detox said, quote, "Someone is mad they was not on All Stars 9. Caramel then said she felt it was, quote, detrimental that on the last All Stars, which was All Stars 8, they had actual eliminations, but now they don't have eliminations. So Caramel thinks that no eliminations is going to be the new format for all seasons in the future, and it will incentivize more queens to go back for All Stars. Detox also said it's also good that they have queens from older seasons, and for example, they filmed All Stars 2 around 7 or 8 years ago, so Roxxxy has changed so much since then. And also, Chanel has changed a lot since she was on Season 1 and All Stars 1, and many of the new fans might not have heard of Chanel if they haven't watched the older seasons. So being on All Stars 9 is a chance for these older season queens to get a new audience. Caramel then asked if Detox was opposed to queens going back on All Stars 3 or 4 times. Detox's voice went really high and she said no and kind of smiled. And Naysha said it depends on which queen it is, because some queens are really good on the show even if they've been on multiple times. Naysha then asked if Detox or Naomi would ever go back on another All Stars. And she also said, does seeing their friend like Roxxxy going back give them, quote, an itch to go back themselves if there are no eliminations? Detox said, quote, honestly, I have an itch. And everyone cheered and clapped when Detox said that. Detox laughed and continued and said that she hasn't had that itch to go back on All Stars for a while. And Batty Davis joked and said that Detox should get that itch checked out by a doctor, and people laughed. Detox then carried on and said that this is the first time we've seen Roxxxy on Drag Race without Relaskatox, which is weird but exciting. And then Detox put the mic away from her mouth as she said this, but I increased the volume and it sounded like Detox said that Roxxxy snuck a phone with her on the set of All Stars 9, and so Detox got to speak to Roxxxy on the phone while she was away filming. And Detox said Roxxxy said to her that it was so weird not having Detox there because they're so close. But at the same time, it's exciting for Roxxxy to do this on her own for the first time. Detox also said that she's got back into Drag Race in the last few years because they had people on like Sasha Colby and some of her other friends, and Detox said that she missed the camaraderie of being in the workroom. And Detox said for years she was like, quote, no, F them, presumably referring to Drag Race asking her to come back. But now Detox said she's more like, quote, oh, wait a minute now. Naysha then asked Naomi if she would ever go back on All Stars, and Naomi said that she isn't a pageant queen, but she thinks of Drag Race like the biggest pageant and she loves a competition. And she's never won Drag Race yet, and she said, quote, so who knows, maybe one day. But she also said that watching this season and seeing all of the queens who are friends of hers gives her a bit of FOMO, or fear of missing out. Except Naomi accidentally said MIA, which means missing in action, and everyone laughed and Naomi corrected herself. And Detox joked and said that if Naomi goes MIA next year, they'll know that she's on the show. And Detox then said that they should just go on vacation to make people think that they're filming All Stars. Naysha then mentioned that speaking of vacations, there was something that happened to do with videos on YouTube that have lists of queens who are suspected to be on Drag Race. And there was apparently this one queen who kept being on the list every year of queens who are rumoured to be on the new season. And so the queen disappeared and then came back, and people asked if she had been away filming Drag Race, and the queen would act all mysterious and say things like, quote, "I don't know." But Naysha said the fierce part about it is that the queen would then take bookings based on the fact that people thought that she was going to be on Drag Race, but she never actually was, and she was just using the speculation to help her get more bookings. And all of the queens at Roscoe seemed to know which queen they were talking about, but none of them wanted to say the name. But then Detox shouted out what sounded like the word 6, so I assume this was a clue. However, I tried to do some research to see if I could figure out who it was, but I couldn't find anything. They then watched the part of the episode where RuPaul did a performance on the main stage, and they all laughed, and Naysha said her favourite part is that after RuPaul performed, Michelle said that there were, quote, "no crumbs left." But then when the queens came out and did their number, they did 5 times what RuPaul did, and Michelle just goes, quote, "meh," and that they have no personality. Detox also joked that she knew all of RuPaul's choreography because RuPaul does the same thing every time she does a number, and it's just a step touch, and Detox did an impression of it. Detox also asked if anyone had seen that RuPaul recently did a TikTok video where he did a blind karaoke to see if he could recognise the song and knew the lyrics. And there was a bit where they played one of RuPaul's own songs, Sissy That Walk, and RuPaul didn't know the lyrics. And just in case you haven't seen the video, here is a clip. Naysha commented about the vocals, but Detox said it wasn't just the vocals, it was that RuPaul makes all the contestants learn the words to his song when they're on the show, but then, quote, "this bee don't even know her own damn lyrics," and everyone laughed. They then talked about the Queen's performances in the girl group number on All Stars 9. They asked if anyone stood out in the group and they said Plastique, but Detox said she wasn't in love with Plastique's lyrics. But Caramel said that because Plastique looked so fierce and everyone was cheering, none of them could hear the lyrics anyway. They also said that there seemed to be a volume issue, and some of the queens, such as Gottmik, were very quiet and you couldn't really hear their verse very well, whereas Nina's vocals were loud and clear. They also mentioned Chanel and said it looked like she forgot some of the words to her verse, and Detox said it looked a bit, quote, fumbly. They then moved on to the runway, and the category was Signature Look, Signature Fragrance. And Caramel mentioned that the last time they did a fragrance on Drag Race was season 5, which was Detox's season. And she brought up Detox's perfume ad, where she kept saying the name of her perfume, which was Heroin, in a deep voice.
Seduction, addiction, heroin.
And Detox shared some tea about this and said that when they filmed that, she had told them specifically that when she said the word heroin in that deep voice, it was only supposed to be a voiceover and not her face on camera. But they did end up showing her face in the advert even though she said not to. They then talked about the judges' critiques, which were all positive, and Naysha said she hopes that it's not like that for the rest of the season because there are no eliminations, so you can give a little bit of constructive feedback and, quote, read a hoe. And Detox said that this was her problem with All Stars 7 All Winners because it was always only positive critiques and never anything bad. Although, if any of you have seen my recent interview with Evie Oddly, you'll know that that wasn't actually the case, and Evie spilled some major tea about some harsh, unaired critiques that the judges gave to her on All Stars 7. I'll put a link to the interview in the description, and you should go and check it out because it was actually really interesting. And finally, there's some drama that's unrelated to Roscoe's, but it happened recently, so I wanted to mention it. And it involves Kim Chi calling out Eureka. What happened was that about a week ago, Kim Chi posted a tweet which it looks like she may have now deleted, but I found a copy of it on a Reddit thread. And the tweet said, "A queen has decided to tell a fabricated story about me and my character on a podcast. Little does she know I have the receipts and witnesses. You messed with the wrong bee. See y'all tomorrow and no, this is not a joke." And people were trying to figure out who Kim was talking about and whether it was actually a joke or not. People then theorised that Kim may perhaps be referring to Eureka because she had recently been on the Very Delta podcast with Delta Work and her episode was about to come out the next day. The next day when the podcast episode was released, it seemed like this theory might be true, because on the podcast, Eureka told a story about Kim and said that a few years ago she had, quote, the biggest fight with Kim, and Eureka said that she was, quote, so peed at her. Eureka explained that she had travelled to do a gig with other queens, but her luggage got lost on the flight, so Eureka had no clothes. And Kim was one of the other queens who was also at the show, and Eureka asked Kim if she could borrow some of her clothes. Apparently Kim said that she didn't have anything that would fit Eureka. But on the podcast, Eureka said, quote, "This is when she was going through her era of I'm not a big girl." And when Kim said she didn't have anything in Eureka's size, Eureka apparently then said to Kim, quote, "That's delusional." Eureka then said that she was slimmer at the time anyway, presumably inferring that she and Kim were a similar size. But Eureka said she also felt like it was, quote, hateful, because Kim and her are sisters and they were on tour together, and Kim wouldn't lend her any clothes. So apparently Eureka got upset about it and said, quote, "Okay, well F you, girl." Eureka said she also got into a big fight with Bob the drag queen because Kim Chi was mad at Eureka. So apparently Bob came to Eureka and tried to tell her how, quote, wrong she was. But Eureka said that she was not in the mood, and she also had a fight with Bob and said, quote, "F you too," and told Bob to get out of her dressing room. But Eureka said she's cool now with both of them, but it, quote, took a minute for her and Kim Chi to reconcile. And then someone on Twitter posted a photo and said they think they found the event that Eureka was referring to, and the caption said, "Mind you, these are the clothes in question." Kim Chi also tweeted saying, "Hello at Very Delta Pod, can I come on as a guest next week?" But it looks like this seems to have been deleted. However, after Eureka's podcast interview came out, it seems that people then started discussing Kim Chi's size because she was the topic of the fight, and Kim Chi's weight has been a topic that's been discussed by some people in the fandom for a few years. And Kim then tweeted the next day saying, "The amount of body shaming I've received in the last 24 hours over someone's falsely embellished story is actually wild. I didn't want to air out my personal struggles, but I actually suffered from depression and leg injury and have gained a lot of weight. I am doing much better now, getting back in healthier habits and routine. I hope you folks aren't this cruel to fat people in your real daily lives." And several queens such as Bianca Del Rio and Candy Muse commented with their support for Kim Chi. And it doesn't look like Kim Chi or Eureka have said anything further about the situation since then. However, it should go without saying that it's never okay for people to comment on someone's weight or body shame them, and so this is a good reminder to please be respectful to the queens and don't be hateful. There is also a little bit more unrelated drama to do with Eureka that happened after this as well. So it seems that in the past there have been some allegations that Eureka has not paid designers for some outfits that they designed for her. And it seems like this issue has come up again, and a few days ago, a designer called Touched by a Scorpio on Instagram posted an Instagram story. And in the story, they tagged Eureka and called her a thief, and said that she had not paid for 2 costumes that they designed for Eureka last fall for Canada's Drag Race. Presumably meaning that Eureka is going to be on Canada vs. the World too. The designer also apparently spilled some more tea about this in the comments, which I found in a Reddit thread. In the comments, the designer said that Eureka was on Canada vs. the World and that she won Miss Congeniality, and she was bragging about it. And she also apparently only wore one of the costumes and said that she shouldn't have to pay for the second one because it wasn't work. And when people asked the designer if they were breaking the NDA, the designer said they didn't care and it was Eureka's fault for not paying. Eureka then responded in a series of Instagram stories where she posted screenshots of conversations that she presumably had with the designer. And it looks like the designer may have threatened to take Eureka to court, and that's the only time Eureka responded. Eureka then posted several other stories with lengthy statements. I won't read them all out, but I'll cycle through them so you can pause and read them if you want. But basically, she was saying that not all Ru girls are rich, and due to her transition and also a relapse, Eureka couldn't work for a while, so she was struggling financially. Eureka also said that she had been struggling mentally and had moved back in with family, but she's not a victim and she's apologetic that her struggles have affected other people. She also posted a photo of her at her niece's graduation and also a photo with a dog, and the caption said, "Reasons to live and gets me out of bed every day." And since then, it doesn't look like Eureka has said any more about the situation. But the designer has since then posted photos of other outfits they made for other queens with the caption "paid in full," which is presumably a reference to the fact that Eureka didn't pay. But other than that, it doesn't look like either of them have talked more about the situation that I could find, so we'll have to see if any further details come out about this in the future. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for All Stars 9 Episode 1. What do you think of All Stars 9 so far? And do you like this new format of competing for charity and no eliminations? Let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please check out my Patreon and consider supporting me. It goes such a long way to helping support my channel and I really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members who are amazing and support me every month. In the You're a Winner Baby tier we have Alan, Anna, Ashley, Bailey, Emerald1508, Ethan, Josh, Kat, Lisa, PC Smush, Rachel, Rochelle, Sam, Shelby, Shara and William. And in the Shantae You Stay tier we have Amy, Becky, Brennan, Charlie, David, Emmy, Kerry, Linda and Stephen. Thank you so much for being part of my Patreon. I really appreciate it and I really do love my Patreon community. You are all legends. If you liked this video, please remember to like and comment on the video to help tell the algorithm that this is a great video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button because it really does make such a big difference to my channel. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!